Welcome to the FNO Insuretech podcast, a place where movers and shakers from all points within the insurance ecosystem gather and discuss all things Insuretech. We talk about how technology and innovation are affecting and driving change in the industry. Here are your hosts, Lee Boyd and Rob Beller.
Hey, podcast world, welcome to another super interesting, fascinating, intriguing, stimulating, did I forget anything?
Insuretech-y
episode of FNO Insuretech-y.
Look at us. We just changed the whole thing. We rebranded.
Yeah. Welcome to our rebranding.
Mm-hmm.
I love our brand. Why would we change it?
We would never change. You know, whenever you Google Insuretech, we're all over it. You go to Google, you do Insuretech, you see FNO Insuretech just everywhere. Hit on the Google image. It's us.
We actually have a guest today.
We do, and we're so lucky.
And we have a great one. We have wanted to have Kevin Mitchell on for some time. We finally got him because we're the tenacious hosts of FNO Insuretech. And if there is somebody who needs to be on the show, we get him.
Yeah, thank you, Alicia. We get
and
them.
That's spelled E-M, not, or T-H-E-M. We get them.
We get them. Apostrophe right. E-M.
Right. And Kevin is one of those people. Kevin is the president of TypTap.
Yeah, we're going to get to learn all about TypTap and what it is. Insurance carrier, really, before Insuretech was a thing. And this company uses data to quickly underwrite and to bind policies. Agents use it. And it really, really started very, very early on. So we're going to get to talk about the founding story, and we're going to get to talk about where they are today and what the future holds.
Yeah, so they sound a lot like an Insuretech because they are, but they're actually making it. They're doing great, and they've done great for years. And we're going to hear their story and what their secret sauce is, and even a little bit about one of Kevin's partners that he gets to work with all the time, Mr. Press Patel.
Yes, one of the most interesting men in insurance.
So now that we've gone on and on, why don't we get to our interview with Kevin Mitchell, the president of TypTap. Hey, everybody. We are here with our guest coming to us today from balmy, hot.
All of the above. Tampa, Florida.
Beautiful Tampa, Florida.
It is I love Tampa.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much in August.
No, it's too hot there.
You got to visit in the winter, 72 and sunny, no humidity.
Uh-huh. What months are those? I have to ask you, what months are those months?
I want to be very realistic with you when those months are, because some people might, put an extra month in there that is not reality. It's really November through the mid to end of April.
Oh, okay. Really nice. That sounds about right.
So May can be hot.
Very much so. So you can get, say Halloween to Easter is that's when you see a lot of the snowbirds.
Okay.
They'll come down and it's beautiful, very little rain, great weather.
That man is Kevin Mitchell. He is the president of TypTap Insurance. And we are thrilled to have him with us today because we have some experience with this company and only excellent ones, and are thrilled to have the opportunity to talk about TypTap. Now, TypTap is a part of another company, correct?
Correct. HCI Group. So that's our corporate parent.
HCI Group. And why don't you take a minute up front and tell our audience and us, what is TypTap and what do you do there?
Sure. TypTap is a insurance technology company that focuses on homeowners insurance across the U.S. We started the company in March of 2016. Initially, we were focusing in on flood insurance for single-family homes. And then we pivoted towards homeowners insurance in 2018. And the reason for that is just the total available market for homeowners is much greater. And we felt that there was an opportunity to leverage technology that we built through our technology subsidiary, Exio, to drive a better underwriting result.
I had some exposure to HCI, as I mentioned, during the time when TypTap was being, formed. And this is years ago, right? What was the founding year for TypTap?
2016.
2016. And you guys were talking about Insuretech and doing a kind of a technology-driven company then, right?
We were. It was early days when the whole process really started when we established our technology division, Exio, back in 2012. So you got to remember, back then, we were looking at the world and saying, okay, in the next 10 years, what do we have to build? What do we have to develop that's going to allow us to compete 10 years in the future? And the whole thought process was this idea of putting in your address, say if you're the agent, and going through pages and pages and pages of underwriting questions. There's no way that's going to be the future. So we said, what if we gather all that information, pre-gather all that information, and the agent just has to type in a single family home address and answer a few questions? And wouldn't that be more efficient for the agent? And if we have all that information, we can evaluate it, analyze it, and probably make better underwriting decisions. And that was the concept of TypTap was born, but it was only possible because of the technology that we had built, essentially since 2012 to 2016.
And so this data you've collected, where does this data come from? Is it data you've already had from prior claims, or is it other sources?
That's a great question. So early days, we had to gather all the data. Nowadays, there's tons of data aggregators. Mm-hmm. There's folks like Hazard Hub or Cape Analytics, and you can go and buy this data even by address. And some companies, if they're quoting a policy, they'll ping the database, gather it, analyze it, and make an underwriting decision. But back in 2016, these data sets weren't readily available. So since they weren't readily available, we went out and built our own data set in Florida. So there's approximately 5.5 million single family homes in Florida. Okay. And it's a mix between property appraiser site and old fashioned roll up your sleeves aerial photos. And when I say aerial photos, you're going to distinguish whether it's a shingle roof or a tile roof, what shape the roof is, whether it has a pool or a pool enclosure. Down in Florida, they call it a pool cage.
Right.
And what we did is we built this data set, and it gave us an unbelievable competitive advantage going forward. Because one, we knew how to gather the important pieces of data. And then when we started to underwrite, we figured out which ones were important and which ones weren't. And this is the critical point here, because now when you go forward, say you enter a new state and you want speed to market and you want to leverage a company for their data. We understand when they send us the data, what we need, what's important, and how to weight that data. It allows us to make better underwriting decisions, because we're in a situation now where tons of people are focused on the data, and the data is important, but it's how you analyze the data. That's where you get the better underwriting outcome.
And so you're analyzing this data, and this product is designed for agents. Is that right? Or is it designed for the homeowners to go on and get a quote?
Our model is agent focused, independent agents.
Agents, so they have a insured, they're going in, and you use all this data to underwrite and then to ultimately bind the product. Is that right?
Correct. So what agents will do is they'll log on to our system and they'll type in, single family home address 123 Maple Avenue. And, depending on the home, because the underwriting questions differ by the home, the address they put in, they'll answer those few questions, obviously pick whatever coverage decisions they want to make. And then within the system, they can bind that policy. Usually takes a couple minutes. And then once they bind it and both parties have docu-signed it, within minutes, the policy is emailed to the customer and the agent.
Wow. And this was designed first to sell flood policies.
Correct.
What was the thought there? Why flood?
The great question, because I remember being told about TypTap again years ago before it went to market, and that it was going to be technology. Technology was going to enable the ability to sell flood insurance, and this is not that long ago, 10 years or so. Even though then there was like not really even a private flood market, right? I mean, you guys were very early in private flood.
We were. We initially started out with flood because we needed a product to test our technology.
I see.
And when you look at flood from an underwriting standpoint, you only need to consider a few things. You need to understand the flood zone. You know, if that home is in a flood zone being A, V, or X, you need to understand the elevation of the home, and you need to understand the replacement cost value. And the other beauty of flood insurance as a peril to insure is there's no fraud because you can't make it rain.
Right. Yeah.
It's hard to think.
It was a great way to test the technology. And early days, the technology that we built, just like if you would get out your iPhone when you drop a pin for the GPS, we built technology that would drop a pin to the center of the rooftop, not the center of the parcel, the center of the rooftop. And I'm slightly belaboring the point because it's critically important, because you could have a parcel of land and maybe only the back corner is in a flood zone.
Right.
Well, that home isn't in a flood zone. We're being very precise. And then we also built technology to understand the elevation without asking the agent for an elevation certificate. And when we go 10 years back, that was groundbreaking, because many of the agents and other people said, well, how in the heck are you going to understand the elevation? And how are you only asking 2 questions? For flood insurance, the NFIP asks 50 questions.
Yeah, a huge thing.
Sure.
And because we've gathered all the data and we simplified the underwriting process, and the goal there was to help the agents solve a problem. And that problem when we launched was Bigot Waters, because everyone's flood insurance premium was skyrocketing. And we said, this is crazy. There's got to be a better way where we can provide a private market solution to customers to, help save the day, so to speak.
So use the data to provide better underwriting, more accurate underwriting, more thoughtful underwriting. Yes?
Yeah, I think that's our goal. You even look at these days throughout the country. You're trying to navigate wildfire or, tornado, hail events, or obviously hurricane. It's our job to find a more eloquent solution other than rate.
When you went to market, turning back a few years, was there an appetite for private flood when you guys started, or did you kind of have to say, no, really, we're serious? We're going to write private flood.
Yeah, when you're launching any product, it's an uphill battle. But what we found when we spoke with agents is we helped them with a solution that created a wedge. So they would lead with flood and then round out the account with homeowners and say umbrella or, boat insurance. So it gave them a competitive advantage versus their, other agent peers to try to get the new business sale.
Mm-hmm.
It does seem as though there's a big push in the private market right now that more flood policies need to be written. Is that something you're feeling, or is that something you've heard?
We see a lot of it, but what we're seeing in practice is people are buying it when they're forced to buy it.
Okay.
And, and what happens is, you look at the NFIP and it's roughly 5.5 billion of TIV there. So, it's somewhat of a limited market. You also have risk rating 2.0, which is creating a whole different set of interesting circumstances. But I think there's a lot of folks that are out there in the private market, and it's good to have an alternative. But for us, we see the opportunity to grow in the homeowner space.
Right. And I see that you're in 5 or so states for private flood. Are you?
Yeah, flood isn't the focus. Flood isn't the focus.
So flood was kind of the way in, like you said, it was a testing ground for you. It was the laboratory.
Yeah, it was the testing ground of the technology, because when you move over to the homeowners, much more complex. Because of all the perils that you're covering. So you look, when you jump in to homeowners and you launch homeowners, and we launched homeowners TypTap in Florida in 2018. And the thought process was simple. We wanted to go write 1,000 policies. Internally, what we call it is a race to 1,000.
Okay.
We write 1,000 policies because we want to make sure it works. We want to make sure the technology works. We want to make sure the underwriting works. And we want to make sure that we're getting the appropriate results from a loss ratio. And we're also, during that process, refining our agent network when we're launching it. Who's going to consistently quote us and bind us? How do those policies perform? Do these agents understand our underwriting appetite? Are they sending us good, clean business? And, that is a process that typically, once you write 1,000 policies, you have a very good sense of who your agent partners will be. And if your technology is working.
Right. So is this a MGA model or a full stack carrier model?
We're a full stack.
So you're a full carrier.
We eat our own cooking.
Wow. Did it always start that way, or did it migrate into this?
Always started that way because we felt that the technology was going to drive a better underwriting result. Why would we share that underwriting result with others? We're going to keep it. Now, it's not without risk.
Right.
But we feel because look at the industry in general. You're looking at that dollar of premium. And it's how much of that dollar of premium can you keep?
Yeah. You're very unique. Most of the companies we talk to start as the MGA and then they turn into a full carrier. Doing it again, would you do it the same way?
I think we would, because we're closer to the policy.
Okay.
When we look at it now, we're giving us the ability to analyze kind of every step of the process and making sure that we're refining. So look at that MGA model, right?
Yeah.
That is a model that is out there, and it was in vogue, especially in 2020 and 2021, right? But then if you're transitioning away from the MGA model, right? So you're going to go from capital light to capital heavy in a world where capital is more expensive.
Right.
It's a difficult transition oftentimes.
It is.
So in 2016, did you guys say, oh, we're going to be an Insuretech? I mean, did you realize at that time, did you appreciate what you were about to become a part of? Because you were super early.
I'm not even sure if they had coined the term yet, to be fair. Ours was just a product. It was a necessary step we had to take, because we built this technology and nobody believed us. Nobody believed it would work. So we had to start a carrier to prove it.
And the company that we were with then were some of those people that you're talking about. I mean, we have very distinct tools in the claims side of the business. And we were told that we're going to use Exio. I would say that we were dubious, but it works, and it works. It's a fabulous product that carried the claims process.
It's an interesting thing to bring up in talking about Exio or technology group. So we have over 50 developers and programmers in the States and over 100 in our other office in India. And they've essentially built, software and technology that handles every aspect of the policy life cycle. So they built the front end and the quoting and the binding. And then there's obviously policy administration if someone wants to adjust their deductible or increase or decrease coverage. And then there's exposure management software. So think about that and how important it is, across the US. We can make sure, going back to talking about dropping a pin on a home, we can make sure that no TypTap policy has a neighboring policy. We can, what people often talk about is, I like that state, I like that region, I like that county, I like that zip code. That's what a lot of national carriers will talk about. For us, we go down to the house level. we make our underwriting decisions at a house level. We could all be neighbors on one street. They might love your homes and dislike my home. And they might not dislike my home because maybe it's a well-kept home and I'm very diligent in regards to fixing it and making sure everything is up to date. But maybe my home will not derive the appropriate amount of profitability long term.
I see.
And so it's this whole concept of red house, greenhouse. So within our technology, our technology tries to solve the number one challenge in insurance: predicting cost of goods sold. And so we have a underwriting model that predicts it, and that will turn it into a greenhouse. And yes, we will write it. So if there is a claim, happy to pay it. Obviously, we're in the claims paying business. But if it's red or it's unprofitable, we'll leave that behind.
I was reading an interview that you did, and you mentioned cost of goods sold.
Mm-hmm.
Years ago, I was in the retail business, and cost of goods sold was, everybody talked about cost of goods sold. In the insurance industry, you almost never hear that. Why do you guys use that? Define that for us.
So you sell a product, you sell a policy, you sold the policy, and unless you've made a really bad underwriting decision, you're not going to have a claim in the first year. Hopefully, you won't have a claim in the second year. But over time, if you have that policy for 10 years, 20 years, there is a likelihood that you might have a claim. Usually about 5% of your policies will have a claim in any one given year. That's a target, a claims rate target. But, so we've sold that policy, and then we have to fix, say the roof. But you've sold that policy not knowing what the cost of the roof might be, or the size and scope of the claim at that future moment in time. So if you sold this product, but you don't know what that claim will be, and it's essentially that is your cost of goods sold at that moment. And what makes the business so challenging is the unpredictability of that. And when you're trying to make these underwriting decisions, because you're making small calculated bets, right? You're homeowners, right? These are, our focus is kind of middle market to say maybe upper middle market homes. I would say 300,000 to maybe 700,000 replacement cost, so building value, and think about all the complications that have happened, this calendar year with inflation.
Sure.
When we woke up January 1st, we did not think we'd be where we are here in August.
Right.
There's been a fair amount of shifting, and in the insurance business, when you think about it, you can't make quick and immediate changes. It's a regulated business, so you predicting the future becomes even more critical. Speaking
of changes and difficulty and things like that, we read a lot about the Florida market, and you said you started there. You're there now. We read about a lot of difficulties with insurance companies. Are you finding it difficult to write there, or are you still having success?
And we had read also that you all had paused in 2022 in Florida.
Sure. So let's answer all those questions. Let's answer the pause. We've paused new business during wind season for the last 5 years. It's just in this current news cycle, it was picked up because other people paused as well. Yeah. And we got, bundled in with those folks. And we've always done it. For TypTap and homeowners, we focused on writing new business in Q4 and Q1. We're stay out of wind season. And then you typically don't want to write too much new business until you understand what your reinsurance costs are. And that's a 6/1 renewal. Okay. So that's typically the cadence in regards to how we're doing it. Is Florida a difficult place to write homeowners? I would probably say it's the most difficult state in the U.S. Okay. But the difficulty creates the opportunity. So you look at it now, say you were a company that had a proven management team, already developed technology, capital, an abundant new business opportunity. That is Florida right now, but you have to be careful because it's not without challenges. And what we said on, HCI said on their most recent earnings call is we're going to start a new company and we're going to grow in Florida. Because when you look at Florida right now, you primarily have one main competitor, it's Citizens.
Right.
Which is growing huge out of necessity, right?
Every day. It's
Every
growing.
day.
It's over 1 million policies. Now,
Again,
we're going to continue to grow TypTap outside of Florida as well in the 11 states we're currently operating in. But we also see Florida as an opportunity that we don't want to ignore.
for those of us who don't live in Florida, what's going on in Florida that makes it the most difficult state in the country?
Sure. So there's a couple items. One, you're very dependent on reinsurance. You're very dependent on reinsurance capacity. And what we're seeing right now is cost of capital is up and reinsurance is capital dependent. So, okay, you have to be very conscious of that. And you have to manage, in our minds, from a reinsurance standpoint, you have to manage two very important things. You have to manage frequency, so frequency of storms, and then severity. And that has to be a very delicate balance. So that's reinsurance. The other element there is, we have a challenging legal environment down in Florida where there are claims that happen. Some are legitimate, some are not. And some that aren't legitimate also have, an attorney attached to them, and those get expensive.
Yeah.
So that's where the underwriting and making sure you're getting the right customers, because so many people focus on, the underwriting aspects of, the property. And that is a very important piece, but you also have to work and underwrite the individual.
Is that possible to do, to actually underwrite the individuals who have filed claims, and brought lawyers into it? Is that something you can actually look at?
Yeah, we started a project through our data team. This is another, huge benefit of Exio, our technology group. And we started tracking lawsuits back to 2014. Every lawsuit ever filed in Florida back to 2014. And when you look at it, it does create one heck of a do not write list.
Yeah.
Right.
You would probably be able to track contractors involved, mitigation companies involved. You'd be able to track all those data points.
Yeah, you can. And there's also positive data points you're tracking. Did they pull a permit and replace their roof?
Right.
Has there been, any type of electrical updates? There's so many things, data points you can attach to the roof. Think about if it's tile or shingle. Those are two very different replacement costs.
Mm-hmm.
Is it, and now I'm getting, into the nuances, but is it hip or gable shaped roof? Those model very differently for reinsurance.
Yeah, that's true.
So all these things where you're gathering all this data, because our goal at the end of the day is we want to provide a product that puts someone's life back together in the event of a loss. And if you work hard to get the right type of policy holders on board, then you can maintain rates, you can maintain coverage, and that's a beautiful thing, because there's a couple things TypTap does, that people might not know about from a cover standpoint. Typically, we provide broader coverage. We don't credit score.
Really?
Yeah, we don't credit score.
Huh. Isn't that a main driver in underwriting the property in most cases?
I think a lot of people talk about it, but think about it. Think about credit scoring in general. If you're selling homeowners, they've already been credit scored to buy the house.
True.
So you're credit scoring the credate scored.
That's true. They got the house. They own the house. Somebody credit scored them to lend them the money to buy it. So why waste the time? Yeah,
I guess what we're getting to is we try to, in our data analysis, we try to focus on things that have a material impact. Let's talk about Ring doorbell.
Yeah.
So Ring doorbell, out of $1, of premium, half a penny, is theft. So I think think about, everyone gives a credit for the gated neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the driver of the losses. The driver of losses in the homeowners business are internal water claims, leaky pipe, right?
Yeah.
It's it's roof claims, whether it's hail or a leaky roof, or it's fire.
Right.
Now, some of those, fire is lower frequency but higher severity. You get, everyone has a different, pattern and frequency. But for us, we want to focus on those things. The bigger thing is if we're digging in and we're doing all this analysis, we want to provide coverage for the good guys.
Yeah, I like that.
And if we can provide this kind of safe harbor, TypTap, I think we can create, what we're going to consider to be a club of really, really great policyholders. And then we can just maintain unbelievable stability from a coverage and a rate standpoint. Because when you look at, even in Florida, just to kind of wrap up the Florida conversation, it's about 5% are the bad actors. 95% of the people are good people. So let's go attract those people and bring them on board. And that's what we're trying to do. What we don't like to see is, people that have this whole narrative that everyone's bad and we're going to keep skinning down the coverage form. For us, we want to provide a broad coverage form and attract the good quality policyholders to come join TypTap.
So you guys have grown. You've been growing. You're in, you said 12 states now. Is that correct?
Correct.
So talk about where you're going from here. I mean, it's interesting. You're in Massachusetts and you're in Nevada.
Yeah. Very different markets.
Those are a little bit different.
Yeah.
There's not many places in Massachusetts that look like Nevada.
Correct.
And so you're in the West, you're in the East. Do you fill in the middle? Do you try to stay away from a state like Texas? Which
I don't see it on the coming soon list.
Yeah, that's a great observation. There's a couple states you won't see on the coming soon list. New York, it's a pretty challenging regulatory environment there. Texas, Louisiana, California.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Those eventually will come. I think there has to be some, reform there before we would get comfortable. But when we look at, the 12 states we're in, it is fairly geographically spread. Now, part of the states, the 4 states in the Northeast were part of the United Property Casualty transition, that book of business that, we announced that deal in December of 2020. And then we did a follow-up one in December 2021 with 3 Southeast states.
Yeah.
And now we're writing voluntary business on top of that. But if you take a step back and say, okay, we want to be a national homeowners carrier. Well, nationally, you better start to get some experience throughout the country. And if you look at the states that we're currently in, it's not, these are inland states. These aren't all coastal states we're in. And we feel that, our focus is trying to manage that attritional loss ratio. And that is going to be key to your success, especially when you get inland.
Can you help me understand? So I want to transition to another topic just real quick. You're a part of the HCI group, right? And so how does TypTap work with I know that there's a claims company associated with that. I believe Homeowner Choice Insurance
Correct.
Is associated with it. How does that whole ecosystem work?
Sure. So we have HCI Group, and HCI Group, under the HCI Group umbrella, you have Homeowner's Choice Property and Casualty that was started, back in 2007, really to execute on a citizen's assumption policies. Then under HCI, you also have Greenleaf Capital, which is our real estate division, and then you have Clada, which is our captive reinsurance company, and then we have a claims group called Griston. So that's HCI. And then you have TypTap Insurance Group, and TypTap Insurance Group, under TypTap Insurance Group umbrella, you have TypTap Insurance Company and Exio, our technology group. And that HCI group owns 88% of TypTap Insurance Group, and the other 12% is owned by Centerbridge Partners. Those are the folks that invested $100 million in TypTap Insurance Group in February of 2021.
Oh, okay. And so does everybody work together?
We're independent.
All independent?
We're independent.
Oh, okay.
TypTap Insurance Group is focused on driving growth and profitability in TypTap and developing, incredible technology, and HCI is focused on their other businesses. We're in separate offices. We're on separate email servers. from my phone, I couldn't dial the extension of an HCI employee. I'd have to dial the full number.
Understand.
So are you a tech guy yourself? Let's hear about you.
Insurance. You're an insurance guy.
Insurance guy. So got into the business in 2005, worked for a regional P&C broker in the Midwest called Oswald and Companies. Did that for a number of years and then had an opportunity to move down to Florida in 2008 and joined Arthur J. Gallagher as a P&C, a commercial P&C producer. My focus was financial institutions, primarily banks and insurance companies, focused in on management liability. And I was able to pick up a client called HCI Group and, placed all their insurance for a few years. And they were nice enough to ask me to join. And when I joined in 2013, I came on to run investor relations and then be on the reinsurance brokering team, and did that for a number of years. Then also took on the role of heading up sales and marketing, and then we launched TypTap and got more and more involved. And I was elected president of TypTap in 2019.
Cool. Congratulations. That's awesome. And for those of you, because you don't have a video feed of our podcast, Kevin looks like he's 24.
Solid black hair. Lucky guy.
He looks like it looks like he just graduated college. So
for the record, 43, but I appreciate the comments. I'll take it.
Yeah. No. It's a pleasure. You have the rare opportunity of working with, I think, one of the more interesting men.
I was about to say that. One of the most interesting men in insurance.
And that's no joke. Paresh Patel is the CEO of HCI Group and
TypTap.
And TypTap. And also the founder, I believe, of the whole thing. He not only a tremendous visionary, but also a heck of an executor. What's it like working with Paresh?
It's been an unbelievable experience on a couple levels. It's very rare to find a CEO that is so smart yet so mild-mannered.
Mm-hmm.
And the mild-mannered part, when you think about it, you're in and day out, whether it's business strategy, claims meetings. He really takes a calm, objective approach to all situations. And what he's developed is you have a core group of employees that love to work for him.
That's great.
And what he does is he challenges everyone to think differently. And I've stopped guessing, what direction he's going to go on a certain business topic, because, oftentimes I'm wrong. But I've never met somebody with the ability to really analyze, evaluate data and make decisions. And he's always 5 steps ahead. He has an unbelievable ability to kind of look forward into the future. So think back. I mean, if you look at the history of the company and HCI Group, everybody laughed at the idea of citizen stakeouts.
Yes. Yeah.
And we are the only one who has been successful at it. Everyone, gave him a hard time in regards to starting a real estate company and, buying real estate in 2010.
In 2000, right.
During the great, financial crisis, starting a captive, when, money was expensive. And then we had 10 years without storms in Florida. So you can see how profitable a captive, would have been. The thought process to go ahead and invest in a technology division in 2012, and starting TypTap, it's really just been an amazing run. And, he's still at it. I think the thing that people don't understand is I've never seen someone with that type of fire 7 days a week. If you're ever in doubt, call him on a Sunday at the office. He'll be there.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a very driven guy, came from quite humble beginnings, grew up east side of London, got a full ride to to Cambridge and then got into the tech business after graduation. And then he was retired for a bit, in his late 30s, early 40s. And then he's come back, and it's been amazing what he's been able to create. You got to remember, HCI started with less than 13 million of capital.
Wow.
It's amazing. Publicly listed on the New York Stock Exchange, significant growth forward, and started by, we talk a lot on the podcast, particularly when it comes to Insuretech, about there's a lot of technology people, although it's changed a lot. There's a lot of technology people in Insuretech who aren't necessarily insurance savvy. Paresh came into this as a insurance newbie, right? I mean, I don't think he had an insurance background previously, and lo and behold, look where it is today. It's an amazing story. It's a great story, and I'll say the last time I saw him was at Insuretech Connect, and he was all fired up and telling me about what he's up to and what he's into, and
he makes so much sense.
Yeah, he's a pleasure. He's a pleasure. And please tell him we say hello.
Yeah, definitely will.
And we thank you. What a pleasure it is to be with you. We've heard so much about your company. And congratulations on all your success. And everybody should know we're recording this on August 26th. So nothing happens between now and the end of October. So I'm sure you'll be on vacation now.
I'm going to knock on wood here. And we watch the Weather Channel every day. But, listen, appreciate the opportunity, and for TypTap, we're excited. We've never been more excited, and we're just getting started.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you for being with us, and please come back again and catch us up in the future.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Great. I like to have on these companies that have been around for a while. I think that's very interesting, and they're a company that's made it through Insuretech. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's really neat. I like the story. I like the vision that he talked about, how it was early in the game and they decided they were going to do this, and they just went for it, and it seems like it's working. I really enjoyed visiting with Kevin. He's a really smart guy, and seems like a very good leader.
Mm-hmm. And very generous and kind to be with us, and we thank him for joining us today. Thank you. Shout out to Al Moya, who is like buried in work, but makes the time to do the recording and make this happen. No shout out today for Alicia Moss, though.
Well, I mean, she didn't choose to be gone.
Well, she's a little under the weather, but it just goes to show you never be under the weather.
Well, yeah. Come on, Alicia, do better.
There you go. Feel better, Alicia. And for all you out there, have a great week. Thank you for joining us, and
goodbye, everybody.